hello, and welcome to my big fat writing workshop with Nia Vardalos. I'm Charlie Capon, founder of Momentus, and your moderator for this souvlaki for the soul today. We are excited to get started, and I just want to do a quick few points of order. The chat is now open, so we'd love to hear where you're from and what kind of writing maybe you do or you want to do. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. The Q&A box is open for your questions at the bottom of the screen there. So please submit your questions there because the chat tends to get livelier than a chorus, you know what I mean? I don't, listen, I love, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait. Lastly, please note, we do not allow personal pitches, submissions, or unsolicited works of any kind in our workshops. So just, you can lavish praise or encouragement on each other. You can do that all you want for free. But yeah, we'd love to, but let's get this party started. Enough of me. I want to introduce who we're going to be speaking to today, who's hosting this little shindig. Nia Vardalos is an Academy Award, WGA, SAG, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe nominated screenwriter and actor. She's created one of the most popular and highest grossing rom-com franchises in history among her many other entertainment projects. Beyond her achievements on the screen, she has made her mark selling best-selling author of and playwright. And she is at her heart a storyteller in the best of traditions, Greek and otherwise, and we are extremely fortunate to have her today here on Momentus sharing her wisdom. Let's go ahead and bring on Nia. We're going to get this little shindig started here. Yay, all the people in the audience, yay. Greek and hi.
Hi.
Yay.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for this because I come from a long line of storytelling Irish people and writers, and I just want to hear your process, and you've done such cool stuff. So I'm going to let you take it away. But yeah, thanks for being here.
This is great. The thing about me that I always say is, and I just want to say hello to everybody. But I always say that I'm an ordinary person that something extraordinary happened to. And I come from, again, a long line of very strong people who had their stories. Everybody would overtake each other at the dinner table. Everybody had something to say. And in my family, you got attention for being funny. And so that was, for me, the catalyst on how to learn how to tell a story, how to hone it, we always say, sometimes the Vardalos family, we give too many details, like you'll know everybody's blood type in the story. So we've all learned to just hone it, take it down to the brass tack. What is it? And so that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I got a lot of encouragement when I started. I was on stage at Second City. I learned how to write on my feet, improvising. But then I really had to learn how to write a screenplay. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Charlie and I, what we're going to do is I'll talk, and Charlie at some point will read the chat. I'm not going to read the chat so I don't get distracted, but Charlie will just feed questions in if I'm not being completely clear. So the number one thing that I do every day is I write. I will take maybe Sunday off, but even if I'm not currently writing a screenplay or a book or a play or an idea for a studio or for a theater, I write something. It's really important. It's like a muscle. And someone said this to me one time. It's actually, I'm going to name drop it, Cheyenne Jackson. We were in Vancouver and we were all making these different movies and nobody wanted to go to the gym. We were all kind of sitting in the lobby for this hotel like, oh, I got to go to the gym. And Cheyenne said this, well, no one ever regrets a workout. And I thought, oh my God, that's so true. You never leave a workout going, no, I shouldn't have done that. You always go, yeah, I did that. And that's what I want to impart to you about writing. Even though it is difficult to get your ideas down, break it down, take it one step at a time. Don't set out every morning to write a screenplay because that's daunting. Instead, here is my little process that I always say from the beginning to the end. So when you wake up in the morning, you might have kids to get to school, you might have to go to a job. So when I say morning, I might mean for you at the end of your shift. So eat something, always. Eat something, don't start in an empty stomach because the brain doesn't work. Turn off your phone. Turn it off. Turn off the notifications on your computer. Turn them off. Just turn them off. No distractions. If you're a pen and paper person, that's great too. And then take one scene from your youth or one thing that happened at work. One. Let's say you work at a convenience store and someone came in a hurry today and needed Tylenol. Start with that scene. So you write down, you say, all right, morning, a woman, 35, enters the store. And you write what happened in that tiny scene. It can be 4 lines long. That's it. And then sit back and give yourself a kudo to say, I did that. Because it's a little bit difficult to get started. And if you get started, it starts to flow. You might be a person who, like me, wants to go on to the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. Again, don't try to write a screenplay. Write a series of not connected scenes. Don't try to write on a theme because the theme will reveal itself to you much, much later. Just get it out of you, write it, and get it down on paper. So what I was going to say is the number one thing that writers do is we avoid. Like I always say, I will clean my house and your house before I'll write. So that's why I've made myself sit down every morning and write. And so, because avoidance causes stress, and having written relieves stress. So, if you say to yourself, I'm doing this for my mental health, it actually makes you feel better to put pen to paper and fingertips to a computer screen. Okay, so I always say pick one character. This person might not turn out to be your lead. This person might turn out to be a side character or a character that you end up cutting later. But pick that one character and follow her story, his story, their story, and create their scenario through a typical day. So let's say it's the woman who enters the convenience store and she's looking for Tylenol. Well, scene 2 is follow her in her car. She's driving, she's stressed, she's late, she has a headache. That's why she bought the Tylenol. Or she bought the Tylenol because she's going to work and she knows her boss is an ass. But if she can give her boss some coffee and 2 Tylenol, her boss will be in a better mood. Something. Always have a reason that gets paid off in the second scene. Okay, so when I say write one line, and I'll give you an example of that. So I just gave you an example of the convenience store. That might not be something that any of you can relate to on the Zoom. So always pick something that you know. That's what we learned at Second City. Our producer would come in and say to me, you know, you did a scene last night on the latest law in Chicago regarding people gathering around daily. And I'd say, yeah, I really thought that it was unlawful that they weren't allowed to protest. And she was like, you don't care about that. Write what you know. And she really, really taught me to write what I know, which happens to be my big fat Greek family that I make fun of for fun and profit. So I'm urging you, write what you know. If you are a parent and that is your stressor, write about that. Don't worry if it's a screenplay that's going to sell or it doesn't sell. Look at it as the writing exercise to create something from your own world. Okay, I'm going to have my little notes. Okay, so at the end of day 1 or hour 1, you have a scene. Now, when you've gotten that out of you and you haven't edited it, don't go back. Don't go back and make that scene perfect. Go on. Go to the next scene, go to the next scene, go to the next scene. If you say to yourself, a typical screenplay is about, I'm going to say 90 scenes. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to write 3 scenes a day, in 30 days, you're going to have a screenplay. Think of it that way. It's always, always tiny, tiny pieces. Okay. By the way, you can also aim for a short, which is doable. And it's quite satisfying because you can pay it off quite quickly.
And Nia, isn't there sort of a correlation too between sort of a short film and sort of the acts. You could even make a short film and make acts of a film, right? Like there's 3 act structure. You could sort of just build your acts, build the start and finish of the
Yeah.
act. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm writing a screenplay, whether it's a short film, even a play, I don't know what the act breaks are going to be.
Yeah.
Typically, until I've written them, typically the act break is like a cliffhanger. Think about it as in television, it's the moment before the commercial that makes people want to go back.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Hamilton, the play, it's the big war, and
Yeah.
then boom, intermission, and everybody needs a drink.
Yeah.
So think of it at that. What is the moment, the big, and then that's your act break. But
Yeah.
don't worry about act breaks until you get your screenplay, and then you'll go back and find them. But think about them, have them in your mind, as Charlie says.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I try to do in films is I always write from the point of view of motivation. So if you have one person in a scene, as I described the convenience store scene, what does she want? She wants Tylenol. Her deeper motivation will be revealed later. But if you write from the point of view always of what does this person want in a scene, you've got comedy. So I'm going to take a scene from My Big Fat Greek Wedding 1, where Tula and Ian are trying to do the invitation list. What do they want? They want a shorter list, a smaller wedding. What does the father want in that scene? He wants to impress his friends and make sure that they're not the laughing stock of the community by having a small wedding, right? What does the mother want? She wants to feed everyone and therefore achieve her goal of being useful, right? What does cousin Nikki want? Cousin Nikki wants to be the one to have chosen the bridesmaids' dresses. Oh, the host spotlighted your video. Got it. Okay. I just changed. I was like, why is my head so big? So each person, if you write from the motivation of what each person wants, the lines just flow out of you. Now, I just described to you a scene that has 6 people in it. I wouldn't suggest that you try that from the beginning. Try a 1 and a 2-person scene. Your 1-person scene doesn't even have to have any dialogue except for maybe 1 line. Do you have Tylenol? And your 2-person scene, therefore, it's always acting is reacting, so it's cause and then the response. It's cause and effect, cause and effect. So when people talk to each other in your scene, they can be listening to each other, and therefore you've created yourself a scene. Again, don't fix it. Move on. Go to your next scene. Go to your next scene. Okay. And then I would say that it's good to have your main character be likable, be someone that we cheer on. They don't have to be so likable that they have no edge and they don't have a deeper conflict inside them. But if there's somebody that we're rooting for, then it's a feeling that you want to see what's going to happen next to the lady who needed Tylenol that's in the car that's going to go and talk to her boss. And sometimes, you know how when you're eating a meal, you're really enjoying a meal, and then all of a sudden they'll bring something else to the table, like some bread or a salad, which is like a palate cleanser, a sorbet, something that sort of distracts you from the big platter of meat at most Greek dinners.
Yeah.
That's what I do with a movie. When you're following one character, you can pick another character to follow for a minute. So if you're following Tylenol woman, she goes to work, she brings the Tylenol to her boss. You can then follow her boss to her home. You can see why this boss is so stressed. You can see why she's under so much pressure. You could follow her into the board meeting and see what she's trying to achieve. Again, if you're always writing to a character's motivation, you will find that your scenes make more sense. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes I'll read something that I've written and absolutely know that I followed a path, but it made no sense. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, I still wrote those words. And there's something that I want to say, because some of you have been writing that you're feeling blocked. And this is so normal. It's so, so normal. And it just means that you're creative. you got to give yourself a break and say, I can't write right now because I'm a highly imaginative, amazing person. Don't be mean to yourself. There is no one meaner in Hollywood than the voice in your own head. So just make friends with your inner bully and say, I'm taking a day off. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go buy a pair of shoes. I'm going to do something. I'm going to go volunteer. And that will light a flame inside you. You'll find something, you'll find some path. I'm going to give you an example again from my Big Fat Greek Wedding 1. I had not outlined the movie because I didn't really understand that process. I now outline. I outline in point form. I don't write a prose outline. I'll either do a bunch of cards up on a wall, or I'll say this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, like bullet points. And I didn't know how to end the movie. And I knew that there was going to be a wedding, but I only had the first names of my character, Tula. I had named the father Gus after my own dad. I had all these characters, but I didn't know anything at all about how to end it. So I was living in California. I happened to have our neighbor's grapefruit tree that went into like sort of the back area of my apartment where I was living. And I remember looking up and thinking, what is the Greek word for grapefruit? I wonder if I would ever be able to afford an orange tree, having grown up in Canada. What is the word for Greek word for orange? And then I started to just think of all the different names for fruits and just let my mind wander. And suddenly I had the end of the movie. I decided to name our family Portocalis after the Greek word portocali for orange. And I decided to name the groom's family Miller, which, by the way, Vardalos means Miller in English. We are from a family of Millers.
So cool.
So it was my way of doing an homage to my family's name. And I was like, Miller, Milo, apples, oranges. And I had the ending of the movie by simply letting myself flail for a minute and drink a glass of water and sit outside.
That's so powerful. Yeah, that's incredible. The way that you layered your own experience into something and letting it sort of synthesize into by giving yourself room and not like strangling your creativity because you're not getting it, letting it lie and marinate. That's so cool.
You can't force, it's like love, right? Like you can't
Yeah,
force an emotion and you can't force creativity. And I'm a huge proponent of give yourself a break,
yeah,
forgive yourself and love yourself and say to yourself, I wrote that today. Whether the scene ends up in it, in your film, having written is a huge achievement.
yeah,
And I want everyone, I want you to love yourselves because,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and also remember, no one's you. And there is a story inside you that nobody else has. Nobody. And then, okay, I did say the thing about the theme. I'm going to say one more thing and then we'll take questions from the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, we've got a few.
Okay, when you're finished your screenplay, whether it's 3 pages or 300, I always recommend printing it. Take it down to the local printer, or if you have a printer, great. And read it old school with a red pen in your hand and start to circle immediately. I would say you edit right away. Start to, with your first thought, say, the brother could be the neighbor. Just start to circle, go back, forth, back, forth. Don't be mean to yourself. Don't X out things and go, this sucks. Just don't, just don't be an inner bully. And then if you find a scene is typical, replace it with something that you didn't expect yourself ever to write. So if you say, I don't want to write a convenience store, I want to write a woman enters a junkyard, write that. That's when you replace it. Don't edit yourself when you're writing, edit yourself in the rewrite. And then I say, give it to one friend. It's difficult because you can't really ask a professional writer to read your scripts because all we're doing is reading each other's scripts. However, you have your own community. And so read each other's scripts. You might make friends with people on this chat, read each other's scripts. And if someone gives you a note, take it to heart. Sometimes notes are subjective, but if the note is, I don't know what's going on in this story, take a hard look at your story and do a rewrite. And the very last thing I'm going to suggest is when you're writing your characters, please, for the love of God, don't describe women by their looks and men by their character. Don't say, she's pretty but doesn't know it. Men, has a firm moral code.
It's like the failing the Bechdel test instantaneously.
Yeah.
Um,
Give all your characters last names and have women talk about something other than boys in a scene. And that's it.
Wild concept, wild concept. You've got a lot of great questions here too. I think
Excellent.
one of the things I'm seeing here as a consistent sort of theme is, we're talking about editors and critics and things in ourselves. Mary asks, how many editors or people do you have read your work when you're working on it? Is it a lot? Is it little?
You're going to love this question because I'm such a cliche, but I give everything to my mom to
Oh,
read.
nice.
Isn't it amazing? Because my
Yeah.
mom has excellent storytelling ability. She's the funniest in our family. My sister Marianne has her doctorate, as does Marianne's husband, my brother-in-law, Anis. And my mom read and edited their doctoral theses. So she's just the perfect,
Yeah.
she's perfect. I happen to have that in my family. The only thing my mom said about my Big Fat Greek Wedding one is, I don't like the scene of premarital sex. That's one.
Of
And
course.
then two, she said, I don't think you should tell the story about Theobula and the lump on the back of her neck because it might embarrass her, because it really did happen. My Theobula thought the lump on the back of her neck was her twin. Meanwhile, Theobula walks around the mall in Winnipeg telling everybody she's the real Bula. So don't be afraid to make fun of your family. They have a good sense of humor.
I love that. And also I love that idea of, if you find something that you're like, you want to rewrite, do something completely different, because then it takes you, the writer, on your own journey of discovery, which is it's a great thought exercise. That's so cool. There's also a lot of questions too about, I mean, you talked a little bit about procrastination and avoidance, but so turning off the phone is a good idea. We've got a few questions around that. Are there any other ways that you find like you're self-distracted and you pull yourself back on task or on sort of the job? Or when do you know to
Yeah.
walk away, for example?
What was the last thing you said, Charlie?
When do you know to walk away? Maybe it's not happening. Maybe it's grinding the gears and you're just gonna go, okay, I gotta stop.
Yeah, I really believe that. I write till I can't every day. And I do have an adage of, write a page, eat a snack. I really think it's important not to lock yourself into a cave without water and sustenance. The one thing that I find is, for me, creativity comes earliest in the morning. When is yours? Some people might say, I'm a late night person. That's when it all flows. Great. So
Yeah.
just write until it's not flowing. One thing I have noticed works for me is I'll go for a walk, a quick walk, and then
Yeah.
I'll come back and write some more. So that helps me.
Yeah, change of environment, walking around, that probably stokes a lot.
Yeah.
There's also questions. So you talk about sort of like the multiple characters or fewer characters and sort of how you write those scenes and things. There's also already questions, and you might get to this later, but Lucy asks what the biggest differences between writing for a book or a script or a play. Like, what are there sort of marked differences in how you treat those characters or those scenes?
Yes, when I was adapting Cheryl Strayed's book, Tiny Beautiful Things,
Yeah.
into a play, I read and reread the book, and I really was a bit stumped. And Thomas Kail had given me the book, and this was right before he had directed Hamilton, but he had already directed In the Heights. So I was feeling a little out of my depth and not sure on how to approach the play. And Tommy gave me just such good advice. He would always go, "You'll find it. No deadline. You'll find it. You'll find it." And I found it when I interviewed Cheryl. I knew her. We'd already had a tea meeting. We had talked a few times on the phone, but I sat down with her. And in that conversation where I asked her all the questions I'd always wanted to ask her after reading the book,
Yeah.
I found the theme of the play, which was the pursuit of love. And that motivated me that every piece had to have some element of bringing Cheryl Strayed's character, Sugar, back to a place of self-love. When she started writing the column, she was in a lost place of having not healed from the death of her mother. I decided for the play. And by the end of the play, she had created an online community of people who had healed each other through their exchange of stories and self-healed.
It's beautiful. And so, your best-selling New York Times bestseller, by the way, Instant Mom, Um, so when you were compiling that, because there's a couple of people in here who were like, well, maybe I want to write a memoir. Is that the same sort of process for writing characters and scenes? Is that the same style?
Yeah, the interesting thing about my book is that when I got the deal with HarperCollins, I had pitched them a funny anecdotal book of motherhood.
Yeah.
And then I sat down to write the book when my child was in kindergarten, and I suddenly realized that I was sidestepping real painful things about my past. And I was looking at my child in kindergarten, who I'd known for 2.5 years at that point, and just gone, you're the bravest person I know, and I'm a wimp. And so I started to write every single story, a list that had happened to me, that where I felt lost when I could not have a biological child, how I got to the point of such gratefulness that I didn't have a biological child, because I would never have found my real child. So all those things I compiled as a list, and that list was, full, like a whole binder full of things. And then I took one story at a time, I wrote it into a paragraph, and then I compiled the book. Those paragraphs I ended up cutting out. I printed the book, I cut them all out, and then I put them up on the wall with tape, and I formulated the overarching story of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you did it with a physicality. Like you needed to put them somewhere that you could touch and see in order to really get your head around it. Because it's hard to get a head around our own lives, let alone the stories that we're trying to tell in a cohesive way. I'm not a great narrator for my own life sometimes. So it makes sense that you would put it up on a board. Um, we've also got a few questions, and I don't want to derail you from the rest of your talk, but we have a few people who are, we've got Delia, who's a college freshman. We've got Theodora here. They're asking, how do I get people to read my work? How do I get my work out into the world? Are there any thoughts or tips or advice?
Yeah, I think in college it's a little bit easier because you're in an environment of learning, and that stops at graduation, because then you're in an environment of earning. You got to get a job. When you're in an environment of learning, it's easier to compile a small group of self-reading, that small group. So if you have 4 people and you make an agreement, you're going to write and read each other's work, then you've created the Iowa writing program right there at your own college. And you meet every Thursday and you hold yourselves to that standard. That way you've got somebody who's giving you feedback, and just establish the rules. Like Charlie said from the beginning, there have to be guidelines where you say, we won't be mean to each other. We won't say this sucks. We won't say you always write the same thing. You can say something like, this feels like it's echoing something you wrote last week. And then you're encouraging your writing group to get out of their rut.
Yeah. I mean, so we've also got questions too around, Lexi asks, how do you balance the need to edit a project versus like the siren call of starting something new? Like, I think she's getting at a question around how artists choose their process or their ritual or their artistic choice, right? Like, how does that come for you?
We all like new stuff, right? Every fall, we think it gives us an excuse to go buy a new pair of, cranberry colored boots. And like, we just love new stuff. And sometimes we gotta stick with the old thing and make it great. If you really feel like a project has reached its point where it's ready to film, I do agree, leave it and move on to something new. Sometimes something has to be left unfinished because it's gotten to the point where it's not going to get any better, but it has served its purpose as a writing exercise. I'm going to tell you guys something kind of crazy, but I wrote the opening scene of a movie, I'd say 8 years ago, that I finally put fingertips to computer keyboard 4 years later. I couldn't get past that opening scene. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to do a shocking opening scene, but I couldn't get any further. And so I made myself do what I just described to you. I made myself sit down and then go, what happens next? And my first 10 attempts were felt contrived or were something that I'd seen before, but I didn't judge myself. I just thought, okay, that will get me to, aha, it's this. And then I finished the screenplay.
Makes sense. I mean, we've got a lot more questions. Is there anything else you want to cover before we move on to more questions? Because there's a ton.
No, I think that
So writing your own story, making sure that you're pushing through your own procrastination and avoidance, making sure that you're writing from yourself. And I mean, that story about finding the ending. And I also had a question to follow that up. I mean, being that you were in Second City, do you feel like the process of improv and sort of putting yourself out there as a writer and actor, but putting yourself into the acting role helped you free up anything as a writer?
Yes, it taught me how to write because it taught me, one, to be fearless. And I did want to call my book not Instant Mom. I wanted to call it Fearless Idiot, and they wouldn't let me. But but I really believe that none of us are truly fearless, except for Tom Cruise, who does his own stunts.
I don't understand. Yeah.
I don't understand. But we got to push that fear down to become a fearless idiot and just say, why not? Why not me? Some of us grew up with parents like mine who always said, why not you? As in, get out there and do it. But we also had, some of us had parents who said, why you? And, one of my girlfriends, her mom said, who would ever pay to see you?
Wow.
When she was talking about being an actor on stage. And that stayed with me, but that is the inner voice that you have to push down. I'm so grateful I didn't have parents like that. I had super, super encouraging parents. And my dad was not anti-education. I made stuff up for my big fat Greek wedding because I needed conflict. But, it's hard. It is hard to get yourself to push past that feeling of self-doubt. I'm acknowledging it. I don't like it when someone goes, just right. No, it's not the easiest thing in the world. But you will feel great. Like, get that as the goal for the end of the day. Having written, you will feel great at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love it. Look, Jenny in the chat just said, "What's life without a little conflicts?" If it were that easy, it's okay to acknowledge the conflict or the like pushback or the lack of momentum. So we're getting some questions now about sort of pitching, and we've got one person who's going to be going to Austin Film Festival. So there's a few questions around sort of getting your work made or into the hands of agents or reps or things like that. Or do you have any guidance beyond, basically really working on your craft and like meeting other people? Like what would you recommend?
I think we're so lucky that there are more film festivals now.
Yeah.
I wish there wasn't an application fee because that is difficult. You want to get your film seen, and sometimes the application fees can be really astronomical. Film festivals, I think, are the best way to get seen. Anything you can, anything. There are so many. And sometimes the bulk of your income will go to those application processes. Don't lock your film. Try to save a tiny bit of money in post for notes. Because often somebody will see something at a film festival and say, I don't like the music, or we need to color time it again, or I don't like the ending. And then you can go back in and fix it, change it, if you agree.
Yeah. That makes sense. And movie lengths too, especially with shorts. I feel like those sort of range at film festivals a lot. So, requirements. We're also seeing a lot of questions. Do you have, in terms of your writing practice, Konstantinos, for example, is asking like, there's hero's journey, there's other different types of structures and types and styles. Are there any other styles that exist or any that you like to follow? I mean, so much of your work is also so personal. So I feel like there are redemptive arcs, there are these things, but do you ascribe to any other sort of styles or practices of writing?
Yes, I'm trying now to get something made where I play an entirely, you think, unlikable person.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting the financier notes that my character has to have a big redemptive arc in Act 3, because I just don't think that really happens. Some people are just kind of miserable and they have a thick little change. A little change, I think, is enough. I also have an anti-romantic comedy where not everybody gets married at the end.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah,
I love
because
it.
I wanted to break my own kind of
Yeah.
mold. And yeah, I'm writing against my type. I'm writing a play right now for a theater in London that is entirely within my comfort zone. It's an update of an Italian family. You can
Yeah.
see why they asked me,
Okay.
but I'm trying to not do what I've done before, like write against what you would expect from me. It's kind of a
Yeah.
drama.
Well, I think that there's a recent film like The Long Walk. There is an Asian character that does not have a Asian name, and you were like, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? We need to start deconstructing some of these like uh, sort of false knowings that we have about
Yeah. Yeah,
people.
Costantino, I'm curious to know if you have something that you want to do. Is that why you're asking? Do you want to just I can't read the chat, but Charlie can. If
Yeah,
if you wanted to write something that's not typical, let us know.
yeah. I think they're asking also because um, just based on the little bit of chat here that like he's familiar with the hero's journey, which is ostensibly something like everybody, I mean, Star Wars and all these things. But I think we are now in this sort of postmodern area where we do want to violate the theme or the formula a bit to try to tell stories that haven't been told before, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, from the perspective of the Joker, from the
Yeah.
perspective of somebody that is an anti-hero. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we've also got questions here around, let's see. Well, there's one. Let's talk about Big Fat Greek Wedding for a moment, because I think there may be some misconceptions around how it was made or sort of the doneness of it and where it got to. But Mary asked, what did it feel like when you knew Big Fat Greek Wedding was going to be made into a movie? And I think the follow-up to that is like, did you know that it would be successful in this way?
This story involves a little bit of name dropping, so I'm going to ask you to
Please,
forgive
by all
me.
means.
That's okay. So when I got to LA, I couldn't get a job, and so I had done theater my whole life. So I had seen stand-up comics like Julia Sweeney and Jeff Garlin do a format called storytelling, and because I'm not a stand-up, I thought, "Ooh, I'm going to do that." So I wrote a list of stories, and I sat down, borrowed a friend's computer and I wrote it into the format of a screenplay, thinking that I could just take it down the street to Paramount Studios and
Sure.
somebody would open the door and go, "Why, thank you." And then I would get to play a cousin. And of course, after I sent it off to all the studios, it came back unopened because they do not accept unsolicited submissions.
Yeah.
So I rented a theater and jumped on stage and did the screenplay as storytelling.
Mm.
Just the theater was expensive. My stage manager from Second City, Jim Yotto, had moved to LA. I paid her $50 a show. I charged $10 a ticket. I printed up posters. The show never made money, but I gave myself a job by doing it Thursday, Friday, Saturday in LA. I hate Sunday shows, by the way.
Yeah.
And and I went to church and I handed out flyers, and the Greeks came. And then the Greeks came back to the show with their non-Greek neighbors, and the show ran. And Rita Wilson and Tom Hanks had gone to see theater in New York. And when they came back, Rita said we should see some theater in LA. And that was the one and only day that I had scraped up $500 for a Los Angeles Times newspaper ad. And the ad was really small. And because we're so starved for stories about us Greeks, Rita opened the paper, saw my Big Fat Greek Wedding, picked up the phone and called. I answered because my home phone number was in
Was
the ad.
on the fly. Oh my God.
And I was so excited that she was coming to the play. I was like, oh my God, Greek girl. So she came to the play. The very first thing Rita said to me in the lobby was, "This should be a movie."
Yeah.
And I said, "I've written the screenplay." Tom came to the very next show. Rita had come with her mom and sister and nieces. Tom came with the male faction of the family. And then Tom Hanks called me and said, it's Tom Hanks." And I was like, "I'm on the floor." And he said, "Rita and I have read your script. I have formed a company with my partner, Gary Getzman, called Playtone, and we'd like to make you our first movie."
Wow.
So after 4 years of having yard sales in LA to make my rent, of doing voiceover work and any work I could get to make my rent, the phone rang because I had decided to go with what I know, which was my Greek family, theater, writing my own story. And so the reason that I was nominated in the original screenplay category is because I didn't even know about the Writers Guild. I had sent the screenplay to the Library of Congress to get
Wow.
copyrighted because I didn't know. And that's why I was nominated in the original category, because the screenplay existed before the stage play. Isn't that
Wow.
crazy?
That's, I mean,
Um,
just, yeah, wow.
I do have some advice though for
Yeah.
aspiring writers now. When you write something, you can register it at the Writers Guild. If you're a member of the Writers Guild, it's one price. If you're not a member of the Writers Guild, it's about $5 to $10 more. Again, I hate the output of money in the pursuit of art, but register your work. Just send it in from your final draft. I write on Final Draft. And there's a little tab where it says register your script, and it connects you right away to the Writers Guild, pay the money on your visa, and then that way your screenplay is protected.
That's incredible. That's what a great story. Where first of all, two things. I want to finish on one last question here that I think will be a good way to wrap this. But also, I want to call out the chat right now because the chat, they're all sharing each other's Instagrams and emails so they can all connect and share their work with each other and read and review and help each other raise all the tides. This is so cool to see. I don't think I've ever seen this in a Momentus before. Um, Thank you for that, Nia, for inspiring that. There's the Greek American writers. There's all sorts of people who are going to pitch and edit each other's stuff. This is great.
I
This is
love it.
exactly what we wanted. And thank you so much. So we're going to end on this. And then also, I just want to talk a little bit about the charity as well. But Monica asks, how do you deal with negativity, whether it's outside or inward, to get your creativity flowing and moving forward? Like what would you recommend?
Yeah, I just had someone ask me the other night, wasn't it terrible with your first movie being so successful? Did you feel the pressure? And
Right.
I just don't think that way
Yeah.
at all. Like at all. And by the way, it was kind of an out of work writer who said that to me, and he's always very negative when I run into him. And so I know that there are people who will view my story with the own lens of their, filtered through their own self-hate sometimes. Don't be that person. Always just think of the bright side and think, why not you? Have my mom say it to you. I'll give you her number and she will say to you, why not you? Why not you?
Why
And
don't
say
you?
it to
Yeah.
yourself every single day. What? Of course I'm going to write a screenplay. It doesn't matter. I don't come from a theater family. You don't come from a theater family. That's okay. Just push back negativity. It's everywhere. Make it the fire under your feet to
Yeah.
write or your fingertips.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I just want to close out by talking. So I don't know if you all have seen this. Obviously, you've gone to purchase the tickets for this event, but Nia also has some really great merch going, and it's supporting a really important charity to Nia. Do you want to talk a little bit about, which we can send the link here for that shop too, so that you can do that if you want to. But can you talk a little bit about the charity and why you chose it?
Yeah, this charity is incredible that we've donated from my book to them as well. And we do fundraisers every once in a while. They make sure that every youth living in foster care will find a permanent family. And the reason that I wrote my book, here comes a name drop again, is because I'm friends with Katie Couric. And when
Yeah.
she found out how I adopted my child, who was 2.5, almost 3, when we met, Katie said, you got to write that story. And I was like, nope, I'm a really private person. It looks like I reveal everything, but I do keep a lot back.
Yeah.
And Katie said, think about how many kids we could get adopted. So this is my real passion. This is the
Yeah.
thing that, just being a mom and entering the adoption community changed me because I chose adoption as the very, very last option. And I was shamed to find people who choose adoption as a way to build their family as the first option. And I went, oh, these people are so good. And that's what You Gotta Believe does. They place people in permanent homes, and it's just an incredible organization. So your money will be well spent. I
Yeah.
can personally vet this organization,
Yeah.
and they're one of 3 that I work with that just get kids adopted, and you'll be doing good.
I love it. And yeah, thank you for doing that. It's a really powerful thing as a father and human being. It's just great to hear that that's the mission. Well, thank you so much. So we're going to be moving on to meet and greets, which are going to happen right here.
Okay.
But we just want to say thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you, Nia. This is I feel like I'm going to watch it over and over again because I want to just keep my creativity flowing. And sometimes you hit those roadblocks and you just want to go to bed for long periods of time. And there's a lot happening in the world. So thank you for creating this little space for us. And yeah, hope everybody had a great time. Look, they're still all sharing each other's emails and it's like a summer camp over here.
This makes me so happy.
It's so
When
sweet.
someone gets married from the Zoom. Oh
Yeah,
my
watch. Best friends forever. So we're going to be moving on to meet and greets now. If you have a meet and greet ticket, just stick around right here. If you don't have a meet and greet ticket, please exit the vehicle. We're traveling at high speed, so just tuck and roll, and then maybe don't lick anybody on your way out. You know what I mean? That's not nice. Bad manners. So we're gonna be moving on to these meet and greets now. Thank you, everybody. The recording will be available after, so that everybody can watch. And yeah, thanks so much, Nia.
Amazing. Yay, thank you.